And he is right. Although the FX is a strong Japanese car, it is aimed at such an audience, which for the most part likes to squeeze everything out of the car, as if it were equipment for extreme sports. Whatever resource is put into it, you can be sure that it will be exhausted in the shortest possible time. And what? The car is sports, for the corresponding impudent, torn driving style. Only a few owners buy such cars just to emphasize their status, without proving anything to anyone in the intervals between traffic lights. Finding just such an option is a real adventure. You will be very lucky if at least one of the 10 cars turns out to be more or less. If your desire to take possession of a premium sports crossover still cannot be appeased, then let us tell you how to find something worth your money from a pile of rubbish, and then what to keep under control while owning. But first, a little history. The second generation FX S51 appeared in 2008, and its appearance was so attractive that restyling carried out in 2012, for the most part, was not intended for design at all. Manufacturers decided that a change in the list of options, materials, and an updated grille would be enough to continue successful sales of new cars, and they did not lose. Even in times of crisis, FX are bought up as if they are being stocked up for future use. The used car market has not sank one iota either, quite the contrary. Imagine how tempting it is to get hold of an Infiniti FX instead of some Camry for almost the same money. But we do understand that all this is not just so. Alas, the golden youth does not know how to properly monitor their cars. Even those who, at first glance, are very sensitive to their car, in fact, may not be aware of much. For example, for competent care, you should forget about the regulations, or rather, reduce the time for replacing consumables by half, especially if the driving style is far from grandfather. Therefore, very often on the used car market there are dates with squeezed out or already changed engines. Incidentally, the FX petrol engines, 3.5, 3.7, 5.0, are themselves very reliable, despite their aluminum base with an aluminum structure on the cylinder walls. However, the maximum possible resource of the internal combustion engine must still be ensured, and first of all this is achieved by removing unnecessary organs. In this case, these are the catalysts, of which there are 4 pieces. With the cutting operation, it is better not to delay and not bring the insides to destruction, otherwise the crumbs that have fallen into the piston group will scratch the cylinder mirrors, and you will first get high oil consumption, and then loss of traction, triple, and everything else. Riders who do not know how to care for their dates often encounter problems in the variable valve timing system, which is why it is necessary to change the front camshaft covers along with the clutch control valves. True, this applies mainly to the 3.5 motor and its board version 3.7. The same engines lit up in the devouring of the air filter. The large volumes of air required for the work of the heart of the beast often push through the folded tissue. In general, on this basis, it is sometimes possible to distinguish a racer from a grandfather. Remember that flushing the radiator once a season is required, otherwise you risk overheating the engine one day. Not only 5-liter V8s fall into the risk zone, but also weaker engines. If, as a preventive measure, you will be every 70,000 kilometers change the thermostat, then costly misunderstandings should bypass you. Infiniti FX is not going through the Russian winter too sweetly, but the manufacturer decided that our market also needs a diesel version. In practice, the 3.0-liter unit could not withstand frost. It warmed up very slowly itself and, accordingly, gave little heat to the cabin. Interestingly, there are no additional electric heaters in heavy fuel vehicles. So, ear flaps on your head, Ugg boots on your feet, and go. It is better to remove the diesel particulate filter immediately in order to save yourself from the constantly lit check engine lamp in the future. Diseases of the transmission. There were also problems with the automatic, and quite serious ones. If small shocks during switching were treated by a dealer flashing the ECU unit, then spontaneous knocking out into the neutral had to be treated by collapsible methods with the replacement of the valve body and valves. And this sometimes happened on runs of less than 100,000 kilometers. In order not to become a favorite customer of the auto repair shop, drive less and change the oil in the checkpoint on time. You can forget about off-road, even light. All-wheel drive FX is focused solely on laying in turns. A few minutes of continuous slipping, and the FX turns into an expensive 2-wheel drive SUV. Thus, a reliable, foolproof does not allow you to quickly finish off the front wheel coupling. so rejoice at least that it will serve for a long time. The FX suspension is not often complained about. Owners usually first express their dissatisfaction with the excessive rigidity of the chassis. Then they get used to and admire the fact that only the stabilizer struts died by 100,000 kilometers, however, along with the hub bearings. By the way, the latter need a tightening if you hear a loud click when you activate the drive mode. Just know it's not a gimbal. The silent blocks of the levers walk a little more than 100,000 kilometers, then they sink in order, but they do not bother with extraneous sounds for a long time. In steering, if there are any problems, they are usually associated with the loss of fluid through the power steering pump, its power pipe or rail. Detected leaks are best eliminated immediately while the system is operational, otherwise the loss of gain may catch you at the most awkward moment. Further only on the tow truck. On the other hand, breakdowns of the electric drive of the steering column allow you to hammer for repairs for a long time until the turner makes you a new steel gear instead of unreliable plastic ones. Is the stabilization system turned off? Just don't panic. Check the brake fluid level. It tends to decrease as the pads wear. At a certain moment, the sensor realizes that there is very little brake and asks in such a strange way to draw the attention of the owner to this. Clutches, believe me, grind off very quickly, even if you are one of those few owners who adhere to a moderate driving style. If brake pads are changed every 20,000 kilometers, then you are one of them. By the amount of electronics packed in the FX, one can understand that sooner or later, somewhere, it must take off. Most often, the focus is on heated and ventilated seats. There can be several reasons for system failure. Among them, a malfunction of the control panel, or the death of the heating unit on the chair itself. As a preventive measure, owners are advised to clean the seat ventilation filter. Unpleasant in cases of failure of tire pressure sensors. Before you hand over a punctured wheel for repair, a tire fitting worker should hear a lecture from you about attentiveness and accuracy. Otherwise, you will be tormented by changing sensors or eliminating air leakage through the nipple seals. The most unpleasant surprise is given to their owners by cars with adaptive cruise control. On the one hand, this system, like a kind of semi-robot, should relieve the driver of excessive stress when driving along the highway, keeping a distance behind the car in front. On the other hand, any slip of the device at least increases stress and at most leads to an accident. You should not trust her 100%, because there are plenty of cases when the awakened owners at the last moment use the impressive capabilities of the brake system. A little more, and an accident with an obstacle invisible to the cruise control would have been inevitable. Never trust the fuel gauge either, because it turned out to be able to blatantly lie about the remaining fuel in the tank. The pointer arrow may either freeze or drop sharply by several divisions. The more often you observe the glitches of the sensor, the closer the date of its replacement. The average consumption indicator works more or less adequately, so it is better to calculate the balance of gasoline on long trips based on its data. Many Ficus owners know what it's like to sneak into your favorite seat from the passenger side. Given the high central tunnel, this is not so easy to do, but what to do if the driver's door did not open in the cold winter season? The treatment of seals with silicone grease in this case is completely useless, because the matter is in the design of the lock, where the frozen condensate fetters the cable drive. If at the same time you pull the handle strongly enough, then the door will have to be disassembled and the cable that has flown back into place. Now about the good. The FX's treasury of virtues can be replenished with the time-resistant interior. The interior retains its original appearance for a long time and is easy to clean. During cleaning, it will not be superfluous to work a little with the screwdriver and look into the underground under the armrest, where cards and business cards fall from the upper compartment. A small disappointment awaits lovers of jeans and a bright interior. Spots stubborn in the upholstery of the seats are not easily wiped off. It's no secret that dates are very fond of not only racers, but also car thieves. For Infiniti FX applicants, one should take into account the fact that on cars with a 3.7 engine, the VIN plate is absolutely static, as it sits on wide rivets marked Nissan. On machines with 3.5, the identifier dangles a little, because it is held on plastic fasteners. A big minus is the very location of the plate. On such machines, in a good way, it was worth hiding it further inland, and it is located at the right cup, close to the wing. One precise hit during an accident can make it difficult for the next owner to pass the reconciliation of numbers. If all this didn't scare you, then the Infiniti FX definitely suits you. Price from year to year, FXs lose inexorably. A car with a 5-year history can be bought for half the price of a new one, but finding a good option will have to sweat a lot. At the same time, even a relatively normal FX devoid of critical shortcomings can ask for half a dozen or two after the purchase to put it in order.